So I'm focusing on consumer barriers for electric vehicles. I'm not that focused on the technical aspects of electric cars, but rather what's keeping people from buying them. So what are the barriers and how can those barriers be overcome?
So right now I'm looking at the process towards electric vehicle adoption, and then how the people in different stages towards electric vehicle adoption, how they are performing on knowledge, what kind of attitudes they have towards electric vehicles.
So far I've been focusing mostly on costs, because there's a lot of literature out there, a lot of research on range anxiety, for example, or where to charge and charging times and how that affects people. But I'm more interested in the perceived high costs that has been said to be one of the most important barriers. And in my research, I'm kind of arguing that maybe that's not true.
I think it's not only about the cost and the range itself, but I think also the government could influence by just providing knowledge, providing tools that people can get used to the electric vehicle, can be aware of their own travel patterns.
So the purpose of our studies, because both of us are PhDs, is to kind of investigate what's going on in Hammarby Sjöstad. And of course the angle is changing as we go along. That's the name of research. It doesn't end as it starts usually. So things have happened on the way, but I think for the better.
Yeah, that's right. So first I only wanted to look at the behavioral changes, but then I thought maybe it's good to look first at why are people changing to the electric vehicle, how is this process going on? Because it could give an possible explanation for how they're going to use it afterwards.
The first article that I wrote is just investigating, okay, how are the cost structure? If you compare all the costs from a conventional vehicle compared to an electric vehicle, how are they different? And the finding says that they're basically equivalent. So even if the electric vehicle is 40 or 50% more expensive, when you compare the total costs, they're basically similar, or they're basically the same. I'm following a framework called the energy paradox, and I don't think a lot of people have heard of that, but it deals usually with energy conservation technologies. So it could be solar panels, for example, or it could be heat pumps for houses. And the problem with those types of technologies is that they have a high purchasing price or a high investment cost, but very low running costs. And my hypothesis is that it's a similar thing in terms of electric vehicles, because they're very expensive to buy, but very cheap to run. And there's a big trend in Sweden now with leasing. So I think that's one step out of the way, so people can start thinking about maybe monthly expenditures rather than paying 300,000 cash for a car, because fewer and fewer people do that today. But it's fascinating. I'm reading this book now, a guy from Silicon Valley, and he's talking about future business models for electric vehicles. And one of his points is that maybe the car manufacturers could give away the electricity for free, so it could be included. So you have a service fee, which is X amount of crowns or dollars, and with free fuel. Yeah, I think Joram and I are on the same path in a way. I think we're also going to write something together in the sense that we're focusing on knowledge and maybe some misconceptions regarding this. It's a new technology, so it's a natural thing that people don't have full information. It's very hard to have full information when things are moving so fast. But I think that's where the future of my research path is going to be, focusing more on the consumer knowledge related to facts. So is it misconceptions or is it correct information? So I think we're similar in that way, but from different angles, of course.
Yeah. And I would like to see what the role could be of the electric vehicle within a more sustainable transport system. So it's one part of the solution. It's not the whole solution to a sustainable transport system, because there are all kinds of other effects, and still, so if people start to use their car instead of their bike, yes, that's something that we want to prevent. And so to look at what kind of behavioral changes do we see, and can we try to explain why these changes occur, and maybe try to come up with some alternative scenarios how we can make people still make the good choices. So the right travel mode for the right trip, for example.
And of course we have one X factor here though, is the autonomous vehicle, that we don't really know how that's going to change. And if the electric vehicle is going to be the technology that they use in an autonomous vehicle, and maybe the issues that we're talking about today is going to be non-existent, because you don't have to change user behavior that much, because that's handled in an automatic or autonomous way. Still don't know, but it's very fascinating.